Welcome to the Battle Ready Sermon Podcast with Captain Rob Westwood-Payne.
So let's have a look for a few minutes at those verses from Proverbs chapter 31. And as we do so, we've heard already this morning some of the things that mums do for us. But have you ever seen a job description for a mum? Any of you mums out there been given a job description? No, I don't think it exists. There was a woman online a few years ago now who calls herself Mummy Mission, and she thought about what might be on a job description for a mum. I should tell you, just for when it comes up, that she has a daughter called Drama, or at least she calls her Drama. I don't suppose that's her real name, but you'll understand who I'm referring to when I mention her. So Mummy Mission says that if mum had a job description, it would read more like a copy of War and Peace. We have so many hats that sometimes we forget which one is on. So here are just a few of the jobs that mummy is responsible for. First one, mummy/slave. Generally shouted for when a servant is needed, such as the TV needs turning over, or that glass of juice is just a little bit too far out of reach. Number two, laundry maid, the one who picks it up, washes it, dries it, irons it, and then puts it all away. Cook. Cafe Mission opens at 6:30 in the morning and then closes about 8:30, just after Drama has finished her toast. Washer-upper. Duties can include scanning every room of the house for any dishes left in unusual places. Hairdresser. On call for daughters when they need emergency hair straightening or other such duties. Fashion police/dresser. On call 24/7. With growing daughters, who knows what they will try and get away with wearing. Also responsible for making sure that little ones look presentable for school, even though they'll come home looking like they've been dragged around the school playground by their hair. Taxi. This one hasn't come into full force yet, but when a touch of rain is in the air and Drama refuses to go to school with frizzy hair, the taxi has to take them to school. This also includes taking friends home after playdates and so on. Nursemaid. Duties will include working with sick blood and snot. Unsociable hours sometimes, but perks include a permanent parking space and seat at the doctor's. Cleaner. Toys, rollerblades, shoes, bikes, and so on. If it's lying on the floor, it's your job to pick it up. Knit nurse. This is a very occasional job, but the little beggars get everywhere. And I've censored that. The little beggars get everywhere, so beds will need to be stripped, towels boil washed, and smelly knit lotion to be applied to everyone. Mind reader. You will always have to be one step ahead of the game, knowing that their PE kit is covered in mud and they need it for the next day. Knowing when they need a top for their party on Saturday, the list is endless. Occasional dad. This applies when daddy is busy being an important football manager on the PlayStation or Xbox. Mummy/slave duties will double. Bank managers. There are times when your children would expect paying for those imaginary chores they do around the house. They will quote this, saying on various occasions, "Mum, can you lend me a fiver until I get my pocket money?" Think about that one. Hotel maid. Your duties will include running a bath, making sure that there are clean towels to hand, making sure the bed is turned down. This includes pajamas being left out, but does exclude a mint being left on the pillow. This may also include a bedtime story. Receptionist. You will take phone calls and take messages. You will greet one's friends when they arrive for playdates, karaoke sessions and so on, and then supply them with copious amounts of juice. Then when it's time to go home, you'll taxi them back to their parents. Right, if I've left anything off this job description, Mummy Mission says, please feel free to add in the comments box. After all, us mums have to stick together. Do you still want the job? Please note, we are not an equal opportunities employer. We will not be expecting you to go on training sessions. We will not be expecting you to further your qualifications in any way, shape, or form. Lots of hugs, Mummy Mission. I wonder if that job description sounds daunting to you, whether you're a mum or not. According to Mummy Mission, a mum is at least a slave, laundry maid, cook, washer-upper, hairdresser, fashion police stroke dresser, taxi, nursemaid, cleaner, knit nurse, mind reader, occasional dad, bank manager, hotel maid, and receptionist. And that, let's face it, probably doesn't cover everything. I guess if you're a mum, you were probably pretty daunted before your first child. If you're a mum now with children at home, you're probably tiredly nodding along to that list and adding the ones that have been missed off. And if you're not a mum, including the men amongst us this morning, I would imagine you're probably thinking, how on earth do they do it all? And I suspect that was probably some of the laughter that came when Roger was reading Proverbs chapter 31 and verses 10 to 31. Because those verses sound a bit daunting as well, don't they? And that's why we need to dig a little bit deeper into them. When you take them at face value, they seem like an overwhelming ideal. Proverbs 31 seems to be saying a good woman will make her own clothes, get up in the middle of the night to get everyone else ready for the day, take care of the family business, work into the night, give to those in need, always be strong and dignified, always be ready with a wise word, but also relax and laugh a little and not take yourself too seriously. And what it seems to be saying on the surface of it all is that if you do that, and only if you do all of those things, then your children will affirm you and your husband will appreciate you. And you have to do all of that with due reverence for God. Now, you might be forgiven for sitting there this morning, as I suspect we were when we were giggling along with a nervous laugh, saying, there is no way I can live up to those verses in Proverbs chapter 31. And, you could be forgiven for thinking, well, the writer of Proverbs was male. This is clearly what he wanted from his woman. And he lived in a patriarchal society. It's no wonder that's what the writer of Proverbs came up with. But even today, those verses seem to give in to today's desire to do everything, to be everything, and to have it all. So we need to dig a little bit deeper into them. There are three things about these verses which you need to know in order to understand them properly. And I'm indebted to the late, great theologian Rachel Held Evans, who helped me with these. First of all, you need to know that these verses are a poem, not a prescriptive list. And so because it's a poem, it's full of hyperbole and stuff that shouldn't be taken literally. I am sure that when we read, I wandered lonely as a cloud, we don't then go around going, gosh, all those clouds must be lonely. There's hyperbole and imaginative language in it. There's lots of militaristic imagery in those verses from Proverbs chapter 31. And because it's a poem, these words are not meant to be taken literally. The other thing that you need to know about this poem is it's a very clever poem because it's a 22-line acrostic. And each line of the poem begins with each letter from the Hebrew alphabet in order. Why did the writer write it that way? Well, it's to indicate a sense of completeness and wholeness. It uses the whole of the Hebrew alphabet. And so what the poet is trying to get across in this poem is that these verses denote a whole picture of what wisdom, which after all is what the book of Proverbs is about, looks like in action. What it shows us is how a godly woman does the things that are listed in it. What it doesn't do is say you must do all of these things in order to be a godly woman. You see, this poem is not about what you do, it's about how you do what you do. What it's saying is, anytime you do any of these things or anything similar, this is the way that you should do it. And so as you read the words again, and if you've got a Bible with you or you've got an app and you perhaps want to look at them again, you start to see that in these words are embedded the values of a godly woman. Trust and integrity in personal relationships. The idea of sacrifice, of going the extra mile, of providing for your children, of opening your hands to the poor, of doing whatever needs to be done. In other words, this is a poem of a life lived well, a life full of justice, humility, compassion, and fairness. The other thing that you need to know is, depending on which English translation you're using, the passage is headed "the wife of noble character." But the Hebrew words for noble character are these, and it's going to come up on the screen, I hope. Isha Hayil. Isha Hayo, actually. Isha Hayo. Turn to the person next to you and say, Isha Hayo. They'll be very impressed that you know some Hebrew. Isha Hayo. Isha Hayo. And that's more properly translated as woman of valour. What's interesting about this phrase is that Jewish women will often use it with each other to cheer each other on. They will often say to each other, Isha Hayo. So if your woman friend does something good, then her female friends will get around her and say, Isha Hayo, Isha Hayo. If you get a promotion at work, your friends will celebrate and say, Isha Hayo. If you announce that you're pregnant, then your female friends will perhaps throw a party for you and say, Isha Hayo, Isha Hayo. If they see you doing an act of service, they will often say, Isha Hayo, Isha Hayo. Even battling bravely with a serious illness, your female friends will say, Isha Hayo, as a way of encouraging you to keep going. Isha Hayo. Those words, being a woman of valour, isn't about what you do, it's about how you do what you do. If you don't believe me, then Rachel Held Evans says there is at least one more woman in the Bible who is described as Isha Hayo, a woman of valour, and that is Ruth. Now, if you know anything about Ruth in the Bible, you will know that she was a destitute foreigner. She wasn't a woman of nobility or aristocracy. Her daily work was gathering and threshing and winnowing the wheat that came in from the fields. For most of her life, she was neither a wife nor a mother. But Boaz, who does marry her eventually, says before she gets married, before she has children, before she becomes the wealthy individual person that she became, he says to her, now don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do what is necessary, for everyone in town knows you are a virtuous woman. And those words, virtuous woman, is the woman of noble character, Isha Hayo, before she does anything in her life. Ruth was a woman of valour, not because she sat and ticked off the checklist from Proverbs chapter 31 by getting married and keeping a clean house and producing children. She was called Isha Hayo because she lived her life with godly values, with incredible bravery, with wisdom, and with strength. So now we understand a little bit more about those verses that we found funny from Proverbs chapter 31. What do they mean for us today? Two things, I think. I'm going to talk to the men first. Because I said that this poem isn't a set of instructions, it's not a set of commands, it's not a set of rules and regulations that you tick off, or a job description to say, I've done this and I've done that and I'm okay. But there is one instruction. In the whole of these 22 verses, there is one instruction. For everything that it says, there is just one imperative and one command, and it comes in the final verse, in verse 31. Reward her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. The instruction for us as men, and as women as well, is if we see a woman living out the godly characteristics that we see in Proverbs chapter 31, we should praise her. We should honour her. and we should make sure others do. That's what we've been doing this morning, and we'll continue to do through the rest of today. And for the women in our meeting, but again, probably for all of us, but especially for the women this morning, be a woman of valour. Be a woman of valour. And remember that being a woman of valour isn't about what you do, it's about how you do what you do. You might be an office worker, you might be a nurse, it might be when you're serving in ministry here, you may be retired, you may be rich, you may be poor, you may be single, you may be married, you may be a mother, you may be childless. But whatever you do and whoever you are, do it all with valour. Exhibit the strong godly character that we see in Proverbs chapter 31 in all that you do. Because it's your character that defines you, not what you do. And that's true for all of us. So on this Mother's Day, a great mother isn't a great mother because of what she does. If you listen to Eve and you listen to Clifton, for both of them, it was more about what their mums were and how they did what they did rather than what they did. It's because a woman of valour is a woman of valour because of who she is in Christ. And so our prayer today is that each woman in this meeting or joining with us online will be a woman of valour. Isha Hayo. Turn to a woman near you and say, Isha Hayo.
If you would like to subscribe to Battle Ready Sermons wherever you choose to listen to podcasts, or if you'd like to receive them direct to your inbox, head to www.equippinghispeople.com/sermons and follow the instructions.